Aloha, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Polynesian Eyes podcast. You have Tua here in South Central Texas in San Antonio, and we have with us Mr. Masi from Aotearoa. How you doing today, Masi?
Doing well. Here in South Auckland in Manu'a, it's a beautiful day, about 4:30 in the evening, Friday. So everyone is looking forward for the weekend.
Awesome. Same here. You're a day ahead. We're still Thursday. I got one more day of work before the weekend starts. But we're really excited for today's episode. There's a couple videos we're hoping to get to. The first one is with a very popular contributor on social media, King Afa. He has a conversation about, I believe, the Tu'itonga, the Kava ceremony. Some of the topics we've discussed in the past. And we may look at a second video of his, and if we have time, maybe a look at Elon Musk on the video he had. But with that being said, let's jump right into it, Masi.
Let's go.
Those who claim that the Tuitonga does not exist anymore, they do not understand the Tuitonga system. That is the system that is still practiced in Tonga today. The Taumafakava ceremony is very sacred. It's still practiced today. That is not a ceremony that started by the Tukanupolo. It started from the Tuitonga. I can understand why the
Any feedback on that, Masi?
Looks like King Alpha is so far correct and is thinking the same line as me. The Tu'itonga ceremony and line is still the way that it's being done now. And I think we mentioned it in our earlier podcast how there was a transition, right? That somebody had to teach the Tuikan Polu the protocols of Taumafakava, because Taumafakava was reserved for the Tuitonga only. But because within the same family of pretty much family members of a younger sibling receiving the title, it's still what is it? It's still relevant, and it's still okay to kind of transition that protocol to this current line. Still the same family. So yeah, I was thinking along the same lines as King Afa. How about you, Dua?
Yeah, I agree. There's a little bit of a nuance from my perspective,
Mm,
and if I can find the article that Dad put together, the Taumafakava is very, very significant. And as he mentioned, the Tu'ikanukupolo does not traditionally have a Taumafakava. His
mm,
is, I think, is still traditionally was called a Ilokava,
correct.
which is
And
a
that's a
huge
yeah.
distinction. Huge
Yes.
distinction,
Yeah.
because the Taumafakava is singular to the Tu'itonga. And
Mm,
as you mentioned, and I think this is something that I really enjoyed about some of our conversations is when you understand what Laufili Tonga actually did for Tonga by giving Tupou the first, that really, if Laufili Tonga, the last Tu'itonga, did not do that for Tupou the first, there is a really good chance that Tonga loses independence. Tonga loses
mm,
everything and falls just as everyone else. So
mm,
that's why I say what King Afa is saying is even more true, is that transition of the performances and the cultural aspect of the Tuitonga that was gifted. It was,
mm,
you don't just go fight a war and then you get a Taumafakava. That's not
mm,
how it works. This is something that is a historical, it has religious, it has
mm,
political implications. And so it was a gift from the last Tuitonga to the Tuiha Takalaua, and really a gift to all of the people of Tonga in many
mm.
ways to keep our country together.
Yeah,
Um,
no, and
Go
no,
ahead,
and I was
Mas.
just gonna say, no, I was gonna say because when you discuss and open that perspective of no chaos was a good thing because he could have caused so much chaos, win or lose, that would have been an opportunity for external forces to intervene and conquer. So I didn't that was just a good learning for me that regarding that relationship of the Tuitonga, Laufidi Tonga, especially with Taufahau to both the first. So
No, 100%. And I think you gave an example of, Hawaii, New
mm,
Zealand, and other and this is something that I think we need to shift a little bit in our thinking, because in conversations with Danny, we say Hawaii, we say Samoa, we say Fiji, right?
Mm,
Even though Fiji is kind of on the verge. But these were ideas that, or quote unquote, countries that didn't exist. Like
correct.
these, we really need to understand that
It was
these
Poland.
quote, yeah, those are European carvings of the Polynesian Empire, and really, it was one civilization, one country, and so that, maybe a better way to describe it is that area of the Polynesian Empire were warring against each other, and each piece kept falling off, because
Mm,
New Zealand as a country did not exist until British rule. And then New Zealand as a country was brought together. But it is that, like you mentioned on some of our other podcasts, Masi, it is that division that gave the opportunity as well, right?
okay.
When you said, hey, the Maoris were fighting against each other, they didn't
Yeah.
have a unified effort. Um, but yeah, he's going to get into some more discussions on the Samoan, what he sees as a Samoan influence. Uh,
Quick before
very
we go there, Tua,
interesting.
I have a quick
Yeah,
question. I have a quick question, Tua.
yeah.
What do you think? Okay, so we know Hawaii, New Zealand, they didn't exist, right?
Mhm.
Because right, and it was Polynesia is a term used by is it used by academics back then? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Was it just called the Pureanga? I don't know. What was it called? Pureanga Tuitonga? Or what do you think is the Tongan word to say all of Polynesia back then? Do we have any? I don't know. Do we
That's
have a
a
specific
good
word?
question. I mean, that was, that's an interesting word. Um,
Or is
because or
Pureanga
question. Yeah.
or is Pureanga just a modern Tongan term used now for
Well,
governing
I mean,
or
it's a Tongan word. It's Pureanga is like, an area that you have
yes,
control over. So
correct. Yeah.
one could say that's the Pureanga of the Tuitonga. That was the governance and the power. But I'm wondering, like you're saying, if there was a traditional name. So
Yes,
yeah,
for all
yeah,
of
for
Polynesia,
all of it.
right?
Yeah,
That's all.
and
I was curious about that.
I do know, like, in some of the discussions, because maybe, if any of the viewers or the listeners are aware of some of those potential names for it, please share. We can dig around on our end, see if we can come up. But I do know, like, Kaulfonua, like
Mm,
that was a name of when
mm,
there was, like, what, a
mm,
group of 10, was it 10 or
mm,
15
mm.
major regions that was under the Tuitonga. That's why he took on that name as Kaulfonua, meaning, hey, I am the head of these groups
Island
of
states
land,
or
of island
yeah.
states, or,
Mm.
so it'd be interesting if there wasn't, like, don't
Just
want
a
to say
reference.
official, but an
Yes,
accepted name for, because Polynesian is a European word
correct.
that was applied. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah, just a curious question. We'll probably come to it if we get answers.
Okay. Awesome.
The guys from the Loau, they claim that the Tuitonga started from Tui Manua because the Loau clan of Samoan advisors came from Manua Islands during Tuitonga Momo. The Tuitonga who challenged, the Tuitonga who waged war on Samoa was Momo. The Taumafakava ceremony, the Tongan royal kava ceremony, started with Tuitonga Momo. It was the Samoan advisor, Loau, who told the couple, Fevanga and Fefafa, in Eweki, the island of Eweki in Vavau, to bring the kava that grew out from their daughter, the leprosy daughter that was sacrificed. Remember, the father sacrificed the daughter to serve to the Tuitonga. That Tuitonga was Momo, to bring the kava plant as a ceremonial drink for human sacrifice, because it started with a human sacrifice. The Tuitonga started breeding.
Any thoughts on that, Mussy?
Mm, I'm not too quite sure about the advisors from Manu'a coming.
Mhm.
to coming to advise the Tuitonga. As I think we all know, from my understanding, the Farefa is considered that responsibility, right? And
Yes.
maybe I can, you know, I'm I'm pretty sure that the Farefa were people within within the area in Tonga. I could be wrong, but that's new information. That's new information for me regarding that advisor and why King Alpha thinks there's that confusion of why they think the Tuitonga came from Manua. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting things there because my understanding is the Lo'au came, or that culture is the mound building culture. That's,
Mm.
like the Lo'au, like the ants, they build mounds, right?
Yes,
They're workers, they're
yes.
structural. So that's one of the challenges is, okay, if the Lo'au came from Samoa, where are all the mounds? Right?
Correct.
That is a signature of the Lo'au or the ant
Mm.
civilization, right? And you can actually find ant people in the Americas. That's one of the reasons why we
The
have that belief is,
connection. Mm.
yes, is the Lo'au. There's an ant civilization. They're tufungas. They're very hardworking. They're very structured,
Mm.
and that is what we would consider the Lo'au is came with the founding fathers of Tangaloa, Maui, and the priests. Like the Lo'au came with them. That is the civilization that the Tu'itonga inherited from the Tangaloa, and they landed in Tonga first. So that's my understanding. Is
Mm.
there's a challenge there is because the Lo'au is the mound builder
Okay, so there's
civilization.
that kind of discrepancy of like we're trying to understand what that term is, even for what
Yeah,
low out. If yeah, good.
and then here's another thing. Like you mentioned, the Falefa is who oversees the Taumafakava. And we understand from Ahoetu, the Falefa was with the very first
Mm.
Tu'itonga, and it was
Mm.
structured from then. And
Mm.
so, um, in discussions with Danny, the origin of the Kava ceremony started in Tonga because that
Yeah,
was the unique identifier, right? When you're
yeah.
part of the Tongan, the Tu'itonga, I want to tell the listeners, when we say Tonga, we really mean
Polynesia.
Polynesia overall. It just so
Yes,
happens that Tonga is the capital, and that's what we reference because that's the way we have divided the world or
and that's where
Polynesia into our conversations.
and it's the origin, and then
Yeah,
that's why there's a lot of reference to Tonga because it's the origin.
exactly. So there's that is it, the Falefa has always overseen
Correct.
the Taumafakava, and that's why when it went to Ikanukupolu, it was the Falefa who structured that because
Mm.
that is the correct authority to oversee a Taumafakava. It's not a Lo'au from Samoa and
Mm.
Manu'a. It's the
Mm.
Falefa. So there's that problem with it. The other thing that I would like here is on the TH
Mm.
Fale website, and let me blow this up here in a second. So, what we're looking at here, see if I can zoom in a little bit. Looks like I
And this is
can.
the seeding assignments of the Kava ceremony, right?
Yes, this is that. Let me. Oh, shoot. It's because I've not clicked on it. Let me click on this. All right. There we go.
There you go.
So the viewers, this is on thfallet.com. This is the structuring of the Taumafakava. And it is a direct representation of constellations in
Mm.
the sky. So if that is the case, what is the if it did come from the Tu'i Manu'a, why do we not know of the astronomical knowledge that the Tu'i Manu'a held and
Mm,
provided? Right. And
mm,
so this is something that's super. People think it's just seeding of the of power and so forth. No, this is a level of complexity than just sitting in a circle and delivering kava. So, for example,
mm,
the halatapu represents the equator, like right here,
mm,
right? And so, in the olovaha, it also represents. It's also related to the karia, where the water going through between the two hulls is called the olovaha. And so we're looking at things that are very, very complex here. This is the double V
mm.
that's found in Egypt, the Americas, and also on top of the Ha'amonga Maui before
Mm,
it was lost. So there's that structure. There's the double V. That's really what determines the seasons. I mean, there's also this structure right here. That's the Ha'amonga in the sky. We're
mm.
looking at a very sophisticated structuring. So
Yeah,
to say that, oh, Taloa, which we kind of dispute,
yeah.
didn't come from
Manu'a.
from Manu'a. We're starting to look here that this is astronomical knowledge, which
Mm,
is a knowledge that was primarily maintained by the Maui clan in
mm.
Tonga. So this is, and then there is, this cross referencing of knowledge that is significant. I mean, look at over here. The Kava ceremony also represents the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere. These four positions, which I'm not sure, but these are specific positions held by specific people, also represents the equator and the two tropics on each side. I mean, we're looking at
Yeah, those are
high
deep, deep stuff.
level.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, and just to add on to for further evidence of why this knowledge of where the Loao came from and also the whole structure of Tonga be the origin, the kava, the tanoa or the kumete Maui. So it's a certain kind of kava bowl that also resembles the kava ceremony and
Yes.
of the Maui because it's a four-legged. So usually, and if people can always see when they usually do the Taumafakava for the current kings now, and for when you also even do titles, a lot of the kava, especially when Tonga uses, is the four-legged
Yes.
Kumetea Maui. And there's a reason why it's that because that also resembles the astronomical knowledge, right?
Correct.
Of the Tongan astronomy or the Polynesia astronomy. And from my knowledge, Manu'a still uses the multiple legs because it that
That's the
resembles their
Samoan
knowledge
kava bowl. Yes.
of their house, the Samoan Fale. So
Yes.
that's another reason why it most likely didn't come from Manua. It's really in Tonga. I think right there too that Kumete kind of. Oh, it's
Yes.
okay.
I'm trying to find, I think there's a specific article that goes over that,
Yes,
the
that
Maui kava
yes.
bowl.
It's not just a regular kumete, but it's usually called the kumete Maui, the Tanoa Maui, because it's it's flat and it's called. I know Dad uses the word lofushi on the top, and there's the
Yeah.
four legs, and there's a thing too also when you like where you can hang. It's kind of supposed to represent like the Milky Way, the Ganiva kind of thing. So those are real deep. That's the reason why the Kava ceremony or the Taumafakava and how it's kind of sell. It's because of the astronomical knowledge and also the kumete right there. Yeah, of
Yeah.
how it is. There's the how flat it is and also that rope where you can pull.
See right there.
There we go.
That's
Yeah.
the picture I was looking for. Go ahead, Masi.
No, so
As
that's
you're
that's
talking.
that's what I'm talking about. That to add to the significance of why this was structured by the Farefa and the Farefa most likely starting from Tonga because they're the ones in charge of carrying out this protocol of the
Yeah.
Taumafakava and also that knowledge, astronomical knowledge from Maui and instituting into our culture. But yeah,
100%. And like you're saying, Masi, it's that flayed out kava bowl on the
yes,
top. We got the
yes,
four legs here, right?
yes.
Would also tie into the two V's like we talked about. That's on
Mm-hmm,
the ha'amonga
mm-hmm,
that is found in the kava ceremony itself. Like you said, it has the tropics on both sides, the center. It's
mm-hmm.
I mean, this did not come from Manu'a. I mean,
Yeah.
the cover structure is very ancient. And I was actually watching a video of this gentleman who was visiting Fiji, and where the Tongans would go and build their kalia and stuff. They would also
Mm.
get kava bowls because of the specific kind of tree that grew on this island. And he was carving his kava bowl, and it was a Maui kava bowl.
Ah.
So and then eventually he says you can tell that the people on this island have Tongan influence, and you look at them, they're not
Mm,
dark, they look more Polynesian. And so
mm.
these are the little details that when you look at it, everybody would say, oh, it's just another kava bowl. It's like, no,
Yeah.
this is Maui's kava bowl. Because why? It
Mhm.
has astronomical, scientific, and religious
Mm.
references within it.
Yeah.
This is knowledge and references that you do not find in Manu'a, which is why I kind of do not agree with King Afa on it,
Mm,
because the the complexity isn't there
mm.
for the Tu'i Manu'a and the Manu'a Loaus,
Yeah. I
which
agree.
yeah. So all right, let's come back and have King Afa continue here.
from Manu'a Islands, American Samoa. And then the Tuitonga started moving to Tutuila. And Samoan women from Tutuila were brought down to Tonga to be courted by the Tuitonga. And then the Tuitonga moved from Manu'a and Tutuila, American Samoa, to Savaii and started bringing Samoan women from Savaii to be courted by the Tuitonga. And then they moved from Savaii to Upolu. Samoan virgins were brought from Upolu to the Tuitonga. These Samoan virgins, the daughters of Samoan chiefs and the Tui Manua, they are called Kaupo. They were brought to serve, to please the wishes of the Tuitonga. Because there is Samoan women in the house of the Tuitonga, the Samoans feel.
Before he gets into that next thought, I think you had mentioned that, right? That the
Mm,
Tuitonga, in one of our other discussions, Masi, the Tuitonga wouldn't go to Manu'a, and we discussed because that's a close relative of the
mm,
Tuitonga, as the Tuitonga descends from Tangaloa, and so
mm.
does the Tui Manu'a. But any kind of other thoughts or any comments on that? Anything that
No,
stuck out?
no. I tend to agree. With King Afa, the Tuitonga did travel and stay at residences like in its control in Samoa. In Savaii, in Tutuila. I'm pretty sure there was many times Tuitonga would go and stay there, and Manua. Um, it's interesting that he is correct when he says the Samoans feel that they have the right to make decision over the Tuitonga. Um, like I said, Tonga's political power and inheritance is always through the male line, and that's why it was fine for a Tongan Tuitonga to go and marry whoever, and they'll still be considered Tongan because they're inheriting Tongan uh, whatever title from the Tuitonga and inheritance from the Tuitonga because it's always been authority through the male side. And we talked about, I think you mentioned it with Daniel with the FAO system is more the family affair, that social status, right? And it kind of helps balance that area out. And I think in Samoa, it is still a common practice now that even if you come from a non-Samoan male side and your mom is Samoan, you still get Samoan
Inheritance.
titles, and
Yeah.
that's probably where that thinking is coming from. That they think that's still that kind of thinking probably still exists with the Tuitonga back in those days. But because even one of the Manu'a titles it was like a young. They used it was a white American father with a Manu'a. um, I guess lady that had the who was the daughter of the Tui Manua, and their offspring had the
The
got
title.
bestowed the title, Manu'a title. So that's a Samoan thing, but in
Mhm.
Tonga that would I don't wouldn't fly because it's every titles political, especially the titles comes under that political and inheritance of land is always through your father, which has to be Tongan,
Yeah.
and it can be any kind of woman, but the father has to be Tongan. But Samoa is a bit different. Looks like on how their history goes, and even till now, it's still a common practice. But yeah,
Yeah.
those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts.
Well, and it's very interesting because two things that I have to say for that. It seems to make sense if you're the Tuitonga, um, that you go and marry someone outside of Tonga.
Mm,
And that way, in the social aspects back on Tonga Tapu, you don't have a fahu or
mm,
someone
mm,
within the social rankings to add complexity back in Tonga. Because if you're marrying outside of Tonga and Samoa,
mm.
and this is what I'm
What's it?
saying is there was no Tonga and Samoa back then. This
Mm,
was all Tuitonga Empire, right? Whatever that
correct.
name is, hopefully come up with. And so we got to shift the thinking
Correct.
a little bit that this is not Tongans going and marrying Samoans. This is the same people. This is the
Just
same people, just
just
different
further
islands.
away. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. And so it seems to make sense for looking at the social relationships within the family that you don't want the social familial powers within the family
Mm,
to complicate things back on Tongatapu,
mm,
right? Like
mm,
if you have a fahu in Tonga and you have all that stuff, it makes it complicated, right? Because they're
mm.
like, I'm your fahu. That makes things. But if you
The,
always have your mother's line in Samoa
mm,
on an
mm,
island away from the capital,
mm.
then you can go there, and that may have contributed to why the female presence is much more accepted in Samoa. Because why? The females who married to the Tuitongas were much more influential.
Yeah.
And so you
Correct.
would recognize that kind of power a little bit more. And then I didn't know much about this, but I happened to come across the video because remember, Masi, we had a discussion of like, when was ever Samoa united as a quote unquote nation, right?
Mm,
Of all Samoa, because we don't see that because it really didn't exist,
yeah.
the idea of a nation. But I did come across a video about a young lady named Salamasina or
Mm,
or something of that sort, that she was able to consolidate all the major titles or something. And then
mm,
one of the main reasons why it was recognized was she also descended from the Tuitonga as well.
mm.
And so so it seems like
Yeah.
the matriarchal rule is a generally
Big.
accepted
Yeah.
practice in Samoa, which is totally opposite from how
Tonga.
things are done in Tonga.
Yeah. No. That is correct. There. That Salamasina is still held in high esteem in Samoan history and and in their genealogy. Salmasina is known as like yeah, I think it's known as the last uh people in Samoa to really hold all the titles in Samoa. Because there's usually four big titles in Samoa. They usually go by the title names of the Maria Toa. They go the Tuiali Ifano, then they go the Tamasese, Tuya Tua, and I think there's one called I think there's one Tanvasa or something. There's one in the where the current prime minister, her father or her descendants, kind of descend
Come
from that.
from.
But yes, so those are the big four Samoan titles. They're called the Tamawa titles, and the only person to really hold all four of those big titles in Samoa was Salamasina, and she was a female that held that came from a high chief in Samoa. But not only that, her mother, I believe, was the daughter of the Tuitonga of that time.
Yeah.
So,
And here's the other interesting thing, Must from what you're describing. for the main kingly lines in Tonga, that doesn't happen. Like the Tu'iha Takalaua, the Tuikano Kupolu doesn't also go and absorb the Tu'iha Takalaua because these are
Mm,
very ancient and very specific lines
mm,
that the line just dies. You don't absorb it into other lines, right?
mm,
Like the Tu'iha Takalaua, it just, you know, they just decided, hey, for political reasons, we're just not going to put that in there because of the chaos Tonga was going through. It's
mm,
not like another person came and said, I'm now naming myself the Tu'iha Takalaua and the Tu'ikanukupolo and the Tu'itonga. No, these are so tied to religious and cultural meaning that, like we've discussed before, this is not something you obtain through political military conquest,
mm,
right? You either
mm.
have that blood in your DNA or you don't. And if you
Yeah,
don't, you can't just go and inherit it, or win it by war. Sorry.
yeah. No,
So yeah,
correct.
yeah. Well, he's going to go into more of that discussion on the
Samasina.
female. Yeah. Well, no, I'm just kind of like the idea of the influence of the matriarchal kind of
Mm,
structure.
That they have the right to make decision over the Tutonga.
And that led to a war.
Conflict.
Yeah,
Yes.
between the Tongans and the South.
Our tradition, our Tongan culture, everybody knows their place. The fishermen knows their place. The carpenters know their place. The healers know their place. The canoe builders, different clan knows their place. And they come with their Samoan Fa Samoa. They have a different tradition in Samoa. They feel that they have a voice in the house of the Tutonga. That clashes with the Tongan system, the house system. The house system, the king makes the ultimate decision. And the Samoan system is completely different from the Tongan system. The Samoan system is the Matai system, and they believe in the high chiefs. And they believe that the power is distributed equally amongst the high chiefs. Samoan system, all the high chiefs makes the decision in the house of Fono, the house of assembly. Those who argue that the Tui Tonga started from the Tui Manu'a, they need to come and explain what happened to the Tui Manu'a. Why did the last Tui Manu'a surrender his power to the United States of America and surrender all of Manu'a Islands? Why did the clan of Lo'au, these are clans of Samoan advisors to the Tui Manu'a, why did they leave Samoa and follow the Tui Tonga Momo? What was the problem with the Tui Manu'a system? Which system was more effective? The Tui Tonga house system or the Tui Manu'a and the Matai system? Where was all the Tui Manu'a's advisors to advise him how to make this deal, not to lose Samoa to a foreign invader, to a colonizer? If you look at Tui Tonga Momo, who brought the Lo'au clan of advisors for the Tui Manu'a from Samoa, that strategy is still used today. America took Einstein from Germany and gave Einstein asylum and asked Einstein to develop the atomic bomb. That's how the CIA and the FBI works today. That's how the guys in the military works.
We'll stop right there. Must any thoughts?
I'm sure. I don't know if it if the Samoan system caused any chaos, but I'm just thinking chaos like in a, let's just say, because we're talking about Tonga to the whole. I'm just thinking maybe within the family affairs. I'm sure because they married many wives, it probably
Mhm.
included Tongan that was close, uh, um, neighbors in within Tongatapu or within Hapai and stuff, and marrying probably many women from Samoa, and maybe that caused within the family affair some issues. I'm just thinking because of different ways they probably have, um, but I don't know if it really caused, I guess, political issues in running the Tuitonga empire. That's just my initial thoughts, Tua. It was more maybe an internal family thing. I'm sure, you know. I'm just thinking. I mean, when you're having many wives, and let's just say all of them have sons, right? And it's usually the woman that what had the highest rank would probably get that title. But what
Mhm.
happens if you're a Samoan lady that if you can get you can do whatever you want, and if you want your family to get the get notoriety or get that title, you just eliminate the maybe all of the Tongan women, and then your son will get that title. I'm just thinking that's probably the chaos that's happening internally within the family house, because I'm sure the Tuitonga or people of high chief that married many people from or many women from different islands. I'm sure that was going on, especially if you want your job is to make your lineage receive higher rank than it is during your time or before your time. So if that means to get rid of your competition if you want to get that title, then I'm sure there was stuff like that going on. But I don't know if
Yeah.
it really caused any issues in running as a whole the empire. But I don't know.
I tend to agree. I mean, that was never, or at least from what I understand, that was never an issue back in
Yeah,
Tonga, right?
yeah.
That may have been an issue in Samoa, and the way I understand the issues that happened with Samoa was this: the Tuitonga abused his power, right?
Yes.
And there was fracturing back in Tonga, right? Because he was abused. The Tuitonga started to be a little bit abusive back in Tonga. And so this warring and this fighting is more of misalignment of the roles.
Mm,
The Tuitonga was not fulfilling his portion of the social contract, so to speak. Because why?
mm,
He farmed it off. He farmed off all the non-religious rights to the Tu'iha Takalaua. So the Tu'iha
mm,
Takalaua was doing all
mm,
the political and the government running, which is not the fun part
mm,
of being the king, right? The
mm,
Tuitonga started to separate those, and he just wanted the I show up, you give me your contributions. Oh, for the
mm,
political and the government stuff, go to the Tu'iha Takalaua. And so
mm,
you do that for a few generations, of course you're gonna get some brats. You know what I
mm,
mean? You're gonna get some people who think they're more than they actually are because they get disconnected from the people. We see this in our governments around the world today. You may have been connected to the people 40, 50 years ago, but you go and you stay in the government, disassociated from the everyday person. Then all
mm,
of a sudden you have no idea what the average person is going through, so you just go and treat them
mm,
horribly. And then the
mm,
average person's like, wait a minute, what do you do for me and my people?
mm,
You know what I mean? You only show up to, have negative contact with us, to oppress us.
mm.
That to me is a bigger driver
Yeah.
for me to believe on the
Conflict.
tension, the
Yes.
conflict. It is
Yeah.
not, oh, this woman
Yeah.
wanted to tell the dude. That stuff we deal with even to today internally within families. That's
Yeah.
not something unique to the Tuitonga and the challenges they have, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
No, no, and just to add to that, my understanding too is just because of the conflict with our our relatives, in Savai and Bolu, was because of the Tuitonga just being a bit too harsh, being oppressive. And when you are that way, and we're talking about just a little time period out of many times that it was peace
out
and
of thousands of years,
1,000 years. And apparently, and even after that incident, um it still went back to peace, and we were still united as a whole. And they were still, remember, even after that, they were still bringing contributions to Tonga for the Inasi and the Bolo Bolo. So
yeah,
Samoa, obviously, it was rekindled. It's just like anything.
two
Siblings,
brothers fight,
two
and then
brothers,
after that
two
you
brothers
keep
fight.
going.
Yeah, the older brother, which represents Tonga, and the younger brother, Samoa, doesn't like the older brother, always telling them what to do all the time, without showing love. And then the younger brother just kind of grabs the other siblings and relatives, and you attack the older brother. And this is kind of something that kind of happened.
Yeah,
Rekindle relationship, and then you continue on.
you continue
But
on.
that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
No, and I agree, and that's the reason why I believe they didn't kill the Tuitonga.
Yes. Yeah.
Because why? Their family, and number two, you don't want Tonga coming back
Yeah.
to exercise justice. This is like you were saying, two siblings, tautuki. You don't want to
Yeah.
kill your sibling. You just want to let them
Yeah.
know I'm not happy with you. And what
Yeah.
did the Tuitonga say? Did the Tuitonga say I'm never coming back to Samoa? He said,
Yeah.
no, I'll
I'll
be
come back.
back, but I'll be a friend now. I'm not going to
Yeah.
come in as an oppressor. I
Yeah.
got the message. I got the message.
Yeah.
You guys didn't like the way I was treating you.
Yeah.
Understood. And
Yeah.
actually, that's the whole compliment of Marietoa. He's kind of like, hey, I was wondering when you guys were gonna
Yes.
step up and express yourselves. It's finally, hey, good job. You guys
Yeah.
weren't just gonna let me punk you the whole time, you
No, and
know.
just to add to that, just of why. So within that four titles, the two bigger ones are the ones, the Maria Toa, because of the connection to that story of that
Mhm.
conflict derives from the Tuitonga. So that has that within those titles that is hold, I think that is hold to a higher esteem than the others. And the other one is I think it's the Tuya Tua, the Tamasese one, because that one has the closest connection to Salamasina, who is the granddaughter of the Tuitonga. So
Mm.
those two within the top Matai titles, those two are in higher esteem than the other two.
Yeah,
But
and here's another point, Masi, and I want to get your thoughts on it. There's a reason why the Tu'imanua and the structure of power in Samoa is the way it is. Because why? It was never a center of power. They
mm,
they didn't know how to consolidate power because power was never consolidated in Samoa.
yeah,
In Tonga, there's the consolidation of power. So there's that structure. And so all the leaders that were in Samoa, because they were part of the Polynesian Empire, they
mm,
were not ultimate or supreme rulers. And Danny mentioned this a little bit in the discussion we had on the other podcast, is they were steward keepers. They were not ultimate owners.
mm,
So when they started peeling away from the Tongan Empire, the only structure they understood was distributed power, because we've
mm.
never internally
Yeah,
consolidated that power, because that power always lied in
in
Tonga,
Tonga.
which is another
Makes sense.
reason why I'm not convinced that the Tu'imanua was this massive empire, or that the Tu'imanua understood how to consolidate and lead, because
Mm,
why? The Tu'imanua couldn't even unite Samoa and
yeah,
maintain Samoa, and rightfully so, because why? Their political and government structure was never intended to do that. That
yeah,
was something that was always belonged to the Tuitonga and the Tangaloa, who were from Tonga.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Their influence was just the boundary of the Manu'a Islands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
10-4. We'll give King Afa here a couple more minutes.
Bring a local guy, the Iraqi, and bring a local guy, the Afghanistan, as a translator to translate for the United States military. That's the genius of the Tuitonga. Who advises the Tuimanua remove his advisor? The question is, how did they leave the Tuimanua? Why did the loyal clan of advisors leave Manua? Why did they leave Samoa and decide to serve the Tuitonga? In today's world, it's called snitch. In today's world, these are called informants. The loyal clans were informants,
Traitors to Samoa.
traitors to Samoa. So they played double agent.
What are your thoughts, Marcy? What are your thoughts on that?
Just to wrap up my thoughts. Appreciate King Afa's his sharing of his history. Yeah, I think we touched it on earlier. I think that's one thing we disagree, because I've never heard of Samoan advisors coming to Tonga. The advisors, what we know as the Farefa, are originally from Tonga, because they're the ones in charge of setting up the Taumafakava for the Tui Tonga, and they had to be there from the beginning to understand that, and also to to give advice to the Tui Tonga, who's the supreme ruler of Polynesia. And yeah, I don't think it's possible to have that knowledge come from Manu'a when we talked about the
Yeah.
constellation, the role of setting up the Taumafakava, because it's too entrenched, too deep in Tongan in Tongan history and genealogy of how this was passed down and why this was set up. But yeah, I appreciate King Afa's thoughts and stuff. That's where we kind of mostly disagree, and there's things that we did agree with King Afa. But yeah, those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, my closing thoughts are kind of related to his last comments. And this really just comes from, and even I fall prey to this all the time. There was no Samoa and separation from
Mm,
Tonga anciently.
mm,
So
mm,
my response to King Afa on that the Lo'au were, or the advisors of the Tui Manu'a were snitches. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, was it the Tui Tonga who sent the Lo'au in the first place to Samoa to
mm,
advise his cousin or his brother, the
mm,
Tui Manu'a? And
mm,
once the Tui Manu'a would not listen anymore to those advisors, then those advisors, they probably didn't see it as snitching. They're just saying, we're going back to where we came from because we were
mm.
sent here by the Tui Tonga. That's another way to look at it. And gotta
Yeah,
remember, there was no Samoa.
yeah,
There was the Polynesian Empire, the Tui Tonga Empire.
yeah.
So the idea of snitching and playing double agent, that may not be the case, because these advisors to the Tui Manu'a saw the Tui Manu'a as one of the many regions that were under the Tui Tonga, and they were loyal to the supreme ruler, the
Mm,
Tui Tonga, which is of higher significance and of higher importance and of higher obligation than the Tui
mm.
Manu'a. That's just another way to potentially explain
Yeah,
the behavior of the Loa, which would once again confirm that the Tui Manu'a was not an empire that established or developed the Tui Tonga Empire.
mm,
So yeah, I think I really appreciate, like you were mentioning, King Afa's comments. Um, Interesting. He has a good
mm.
way of
Yeah,
presenting
yeah.
the information. He's good at having that presentation, and we appreciate it. And with that being said, we appreciate everyone for this podcast. Till next time, have a good one.
See ya.
See ya.